belong to a business. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Bedtime Stories at MTRA. Well, we are entering into our chapter 5 of Stay the Distance. Jules has just been working so hard and trying to figure out how her life is going to be and what it's going to look like. But she didn't go to college. Her dad is making her work on the farm. So she's exercising the thoroughbreds, galloping in the mornings, and preparing for the races. Meanwhile, she's got a bet going on we need to find out about. Well, let's see what happens. Here we go, chapter 5. This one, Martina tells me, pulling a dress out of the closet and throwing it on the bed, and this one. I don't pay attention because I'm too busy trying to decide if I should bother taking anything to Saratoga that I can't reasonably ride in. The dresses Martina picks out won't see anything other than race days. I decide to go ahead and pack my favorite shirts, the ones that shouldn't under any circumstances be within touching distance of a horse, just in case. Do you remember that dark blue dress I have? Martina asked me. Not bothering to turn around, she's standing in the middle of my closet, her hands on her hips, surveying my dress situation. Her dark hair curls loosely all the way down her back, and she's still in her work clothes from the law firm where she's paid well to file papers and chat up people seeking disability. She looks a lot like Mom from my position on the other side of the room, and if I said that she would probably throw someone at me, so I mutter a vague noise so she can construe as a yes. I think it would look good on you, she said to the closet. Thanks, I say, pulling my dusty track-only duffel bag over and going through its contents. We're leaving for Saratoga tomorrow, but with the Haskell coming up and Corkstar still preparing for it, there will be some interesting maneuvering to get most of the string situated at Blackbridge's training facility outside of Saratoga and Star to Monmouth in Jersey. Saratoga is the pinnacle of the New York circuit. I don't know why Mom ever wanted to leave it for Santa Ana. Before she left, Mom was in the top 10 riders at Belmont. She was happy with what she had. But then, I don't know, she got restless, I guess. Maybe the New York circuit wore on her. Maybe the warm California sunshine and the freedom to bounce from track to track, horse to horse, was appealing. The horse she permanently left New York for was called Separate Ways. After a journey song, when I got older, I found a lot of hilarity in that. He came in 5th in the Derby that year. Since then, there have been a lot of horses like him for Mom. Dad, of course, has had a lot of horses like him, too. He's never once asked Mom to come back to ride any of them. Are you sure you don't want to keep that dress here? Asked Martinez. Back, if you come up for any of the race days, you might want to bring it. I am house seating, Martinez says, with great resolution. Remember? Right, I nod, going back to the duffel. Everything is here, but I still go through it again because I want to be sure. Martina, there for a second, like she doesn't know what to do before she announces that she's going to get the dress and disappears. I have more dresses than I realistically need for this meet. 10 is way too many. It's Martina's doing, and I don't really contradict her. She would refuse to hear it. When she comes back, I try again anyway. Scott would like the races. You know, it's right up his alley. She frowns at me, putting the dresses down on top of the others and opening up the garment bag. If there is one thing Martina is devoted to in life, it is packing clothing properly. It's not Scott's thing, she corrects me, and I'm not taking him. What if he wanted to come? I still wouldn't go with him, she says easily. It's not my thing, Jules. You know that, so stop asking. Fine. It's not that I don't want the horses to do well. I know. I don't want to be there. Okay. I just said it was, I say louder than necessary. I'm more than irritated that she never shows up, leaving me to be the one who has to deal with any potential insanity. If and when Mom pops up in one of the programs, like she did at Aqueduct. Martina doesn't follow any of this, and she probably doesn't know the effort I put into making sure we'll never be surprised again. And she wouldn't be impressed or appreciative of my efforts. She'd ask me why I bother, because it's not as if I'm going to keep doing this racing thing as seriously as Dad. At least that's her opinion. I don't even know what mine is at the moment. She pauses in her rapid packing to look at me from across the bed. I'm sorry, she says, and I blink at her. I know you want me to come, she says and shrugs, but I'm not going to go. Well, at least we're being forthright now. I could push her some more, but I don't. I don't have the willpower to keep fighting for some ray of hope that my sister will crack. Instead of continuing this exercise in futility, I zip up the duffel bag, push it over by my suitcase, and I thank her for helping me pack. Martina shrugs again, looking over her work with something akin to pride. Someone has to do this, she says. If I left it all up to you, there wouldn't be a day during Saratoga that you had something to wear that was wrinkle-free. My clothes and sense of fashion commend you, Martina. She does catch the sarcasm, for someone so persnickety about everything remarkably slovenly. And this is where I'm ending this conversation. I pick up my keys and grab my bag. I'm going to Woodfield. The old barn? Martina asked, like it's never occurred to her to go to the old barn. She used to be all about it once upon a time. Don't ever go anywhere normal. Apparently not, I say, pulling my newest pair of breeches out of my drawer and riding clothes, leaving the room and Martina behind me. My car crunches into gravel and lurches into a pothole as soon as I turn onto the drive of Woodfield Equestrian Center, my home away from the racing circuit. I mutter a curse at the riddled gravel lot and manage to avoid the other massive pits and ridges on my way to the barn, an imposing structure that looks like it's about to fall down. I'm sure the Hempstead residents around this tiny piece of property would like nothing more than for the barn to magically disappear. If the banners that's draped over the barn door declaring Save Woodfield is any indication, the whole place is nothing more than a barn. The giant outdoor arena and the most overgrown 1-acre paddock I've ever seen. Still, there were 30 horses situated in that barn, and this is where one day Diver could spend his time rehabbing from the track if I can somehow buy him. Woodfield is where I learned to ride. I come back when there's time, of which lately there's been none. Jules! Lisa, my old riding instructor, yells at me as soon as I get out of the car. She's lunging a muscular bay in the arena, her attention solely on the horse, and I wonder how she even noticed my arrival. Go tack up Gideon. We moved him to second aisle on the left. Everything else is the same. I slam the door. Good to see you too, Lise. She nods her head up in acknowledgement and her brown ponytail bobbing. The barn is cool inside, the piercing summer sun and the heat hardly penetrating the 3 long aisles. It smells strongly of horses and manure, dust floating everywhere, but it's far cleaner than barn 27. And that's something I appreciate. Gideon is vacuuming down his hay, shoving half of it out onto the cement aisle in his enthusiasm. When he sees me coming, he barely spares me a glance, probably because I don't have anything enticing to convince him that hay isn't all life's cracked up to be. I give Gideon a once-over with a brush, tack him up in his stall, get his galloping boots in place, snatch up one of the long dressage whips, and take him out into the shocking afternoon light. He blinks at the sudden transformation and thinks about yelling out to the horse Lisa has on the lunge line before making a grunt in the back of his throat, as if to say, "Hey, forget it." He decides instead to snort at my face. "Thanks for that," I tell him, while he perks up and swings his hip around all the way to the gate. Gideon has several years on me, and he spent most of my favorite years saving my butt while I learned to ride. He's the barn's star schoolmaster, and riding him is like a slice of nostalgia. always peaceful right before he comes to a dead halt from a canter, because dust clouds are terrifying and mysterious. I flipped over his shoulder more times than I'd like to admit. My first broken bone totally received while falling from Gideon. Lisa's still working with the bay, which has gone into some acrobatic leaps on the lunge line that I'm sure Gideon doesn't have in him anymore, so I wait by the gate and spectate. Lisa watches the bay like an intense hawk, focuses on prey, and the horse is wild-eyed as it flings its mane. I watch the endless circling Lisa's commands and the thudding sounds of hoofs on soft dirt, lulling me into a trance. Gideon takes that moment to nip me on the arm, and I jump. He jumps in response. I shake my head at him and rub at the abused skin that's already turning an angry pink. There will be the tiniest of bruises on my arm tomorrow, courtesy of this crazy gelding. The bay calms down and Lisa brings it to a halt. Come on in, Jules, she says. To me, breathing heavily after the effort with the bay, I lead Gideon inside the arena. I'm the new recruit. Who's he? I asked, pulling down the stirrups to Gideon's saddle and mounting up. See, Lisa says, scrubbing her dirty fingers over the mare's forehead, and then mare gives Gideon what can only be described as a glare. So I keep him on the other half of the arena, making Lisa talk across the distance. She's my new show horse in training. I thought she'd be a new school horse, but turns out she hates it. Not everyone can be as easygoing as Gideon, I say, walking the gelding on a loose rein and using a nudge here and there to guide him around in a circle. I like the look of her, though. There's potential, Lisa says, ever sparing with her praise. She leads the mare out of the arena and yells over her shoulder, Keep walking him on the buckle. I'll be back in a second and we'll see how rusty you are. I wince, wondering what she's going to put me through. I haven't been around in a while, true. It has been that I've been here all the time after school, mucking out stalls and doing stupid things like galloping Gideon around bareback in the lonely pasture with other working students my age. I've done a lot of dressage shows in this arena and in the larger farms further out on Long Island, back when I had the time and I wasn't single-mindedly pursuing a slip of memory in the form of my mother. I gather up Gideon's reins and push him into a faster walk. We accomplish a bunch of walk-trot transitions. On one side of the arena, Gideon warming up and me trying not to think about anything. The gelding snorts and keeps trying to stick his left side against my leg as we turn, throwing a kink into the works. A nudge doesn't get the point across, so I flick the whip behind my boot. He shifts his barrel to the right, precisely where I want it, and we flow into the circle. That's when Lisa shows up and reprimands me for starting the lesson early. In my defense, I say, bringing Gideon to a halt in the center of the arena as she walks up and stops in front of us, hands on her hips. I don't know. I was signing on for a lesson. I didn't know that. Whatever, Lisa says, pushing my boot with the side of her hand. Gideon steps away from the pressure obediently. You're going to Saratoga tomorrow, right? You've been squeezing in an extra lesson a summer tradition. So why stop now that you're barely around? I make a face, a guilty, pathetic face. Figure eights, Lisa says, sitting trot. I will settle for no less than perfection. An hour later, Gideon and I are soaked in sweat. We've done every riding exercise I can think of off the top of my head, and since Lisa has chosen this day to reintroduce me to counter canter, I feel like my brain is about to explode. Gideon has taken it into his head to come to a dead halt every time I do it wrong, and the fifth time we come out of the turn and loop away from the wall on the correct lead, I think to myself that this is it. If we don't get it right this time, Gideon will probably try to kill me. By some miracle, it all clicks. Gideon loops away from the wall, drifts back in like a professional he is, and we flow through the turn. There's 2 strides of me letting out a celebrity whoop to release all that repressed frustration. And Gideon does what I should have expected and comes to such a bone-shuddering stop that I find myself up on his neck and clinging to his coarse mane. Hey, Jules. Save the partying for afterward, Lisa advises from her spot. In the middle of the arena, I push myself off to Gideon's neck and wiggled back onto the saddle and sliding back onto the leather with a tremendous sigh. Oh, Gideon, the little angel, stands till the entire time. I'll try to remember that, I say, leaving my feet out of the stirrups and dangling. I give Gideon 2 hearty pats on the shoulder and dismount, which mostly equates to falling down because my legs hit the ground and fold. I roll onto my back and I can't help laughing while Gideon snuffles his nose across my stomach and nudges the pockets of my breeches till finding nothing to eat. Okay, crazy girl, Lisa sighs, her dusty boots coming into vision by my head. She offers me her hand and I take it, letting her pull me to my feet. I know dressage can kick your ass, but point taken, I say. Undoing my helmet and tugging it off, I swipe at the dirt that's coating my butt and thighs. This is still exhausting. Lisa loosens Gideon's girth and says, You need to come by more often. Riding those racers every morning isn't cutting it. I laugh again, but that's not all the case, and Lisa knows it. Riding racers every morning is death defying. One of these days, I say, when I get Diver from Delaney, he'll need a good place to wind down after racing. I'll board him here, and then you'll never get rid of me. You still haven't bought that horse yet? Lisa asks, well versed in my obsession and eventually owning Diver. Hasn't that been your primary goal for the past, I don't know how long? Since Mom left, I shrug, but I'm not counting years or anything. With your lack of execution in the horse purchasing department, I wouldn't be either, she says, pulling Gideon's reins over his head while I run up the stirrups. My skin goes red like it commonly does when I'm faced with facts I don't much like. Well, I sighed, one of these days he has to start sucking on the track, right? One of these days, Lisa agrees, but then she shrugs. I'll have a stall for him should that day ever occur. We walk Gideon back to the barn I'll see all the time the moment Diver sets foot inside. It'll be home away from home again, and I hope that will be soon. That's chapter 5. So, looks like we're almost ready to go to Saratoga. It's going to happen in the next chapter, I bet. I don't know. I'm a little worried about her bet. We'll see what happens. You all have a great night. Get a good night's sleep. Be safe. Be kind. And I'll see you here tomorrow for chapter 6 of Stay the Distance.